Billionaire CEO mocked his black ex-girlfriend's twins' DNA test, left him frozen in shame. Before we begin, we'd love to know, what city are you watching from? Leave it in the comments. And at the end, don't forget to give this story a rating from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. He pointed at the twin girls across the table, same dark curls, same quiet eyes, and said coldly, "They can't be mine. Look at them. Nothing like me." The room fell silent. She said nothing. No screaming, no tears, just that hollow, steady stare of a woman who had already survived worse. What he didn't know was that a DNA test had already been done. And in less than 48 hours, the truth would break him in front of the world. The dinner where it all fell apart. It was supposed to be just another quiet evening. A soft jazz trio played in the corner. Champagne flutes clinked. Waiters whispered across velvet-carpeted floors. And then he walked in, Leon Maddox, the billionaire CEO whose name alone could hush a room. Tall, crisp suit, silver cufflinks, a man who hadn't been seen in public with a woman in over 2 years. Until now, he didn't expect to see her. Not here, not tonight, and certainly not sitting at a corner table with 2 little girls identical, wide-eyed, impossibly quiet. They looked like memories. Her name was Claire Halston, the only woman who had ever left him before he had the chance to hurt her first. Leon's gaze narrowed. He walked over, not out of longing, but out of ego, of unfinished business. "Claire," he said, coolly. "Long time." She smiled, gently. "Yes, a very long time." And then he saw them. The twins. One had a curl tucked behind her ear, just the way Claire used to do when she was nervous. The other had Leon's exact storm gray eyes. He stiffened. "Yours." Claire paused. "Ours." The laugh he let out was sharp, loud enough to hush the nearby table. "You expect me to believe that I fathered 2 kids I never knew about?" His eyes scanned the girls again. "Come on, they don't even look like me." One of the girls flinched. The other dropped her fork. Claire's voice didn't rise. She just looked at him, a little sad, a little tired. "You're right. You never looked closely." People had begun to whisper. A phone lifted. Someone was recording. Leon scoffed, turning toward the watching eyes. "This is what happens when exes want attention. I guess fabricate fatherhood. Throw in some matching dresses." But Claire stood up slowly. "I didn't ask for this." "Leon," she said, her voice trembling but clear. "You did." The moment you walked over, she reached into her purse, took out a sealed white envelope, and placed it on the table between them, just in case the resemblance wasn't enough for you. He stared at it. "What is this?" "Truth," she said softly. "A DNA test, signed, dated, yours." In that moment, the only thing louder than the silence in the room was the sound of a man realizing he might have just humiliated his own daughters. And they were watching. Chapter 1. The Man Who Denied Blood. Some wounds begin with words that can't be taken back. Leon Maddox never planned to stop at that restaurant. He didn't believe in detours, or fate, or anything that felt accidental. But that night, something, call it instinct, call it ego, pulled his driver to a halt on 48th and Lexington. He walked in alone. As always, no assistant, no bodyguard, just power in the shape of a man. And then he saw her. Claire, 7 years, hadn't changed the way her presence froze the room for him. Still graceful, still composed, still holding her own heart, like it was a secret no one was allowed to touch. But this time, she wasn't alone. There were 2 little girls at her table, identical, matching dresses, same dark waves of hair, same wide, careful eyes. 6 years old, maybe 7. Leon stared. Claire looked up, calm as ever. "Leon." He stepped closer. Well, he said, almost smiling, you never did like attention, but I guess motherhood suits you. She didn't return the smile. We're just finishing dinner. His gaze flicked to the girls. Twins, yes. He blinked once. Yours. She met his eyes. Ours. It was the silence after that word that cracked something in him. He didn't flinch, not outwardly, but something behind his ribs shifted, hardened. Ours, he repeated, with a dry laugh. That's a stretch, don't you think? Claire said nothing. Leon looked at the girls again, squinting. They don't even look like me. Lila looked down at her napkin. Iris reached for her mother's hand. Claire's voice was low. You haven't looked close enough. He let out a breath. Let me guess, you thought showing up here with a pair of children and a fragile story would do what? Make me panic. Sign a check. Leon, no. He cut in sharply. You don't get to disappear for 6 years and then walk back in with this. He gestured vaguely at the girls. This scene. The table next to theirs went quiet. Someone's phone lifted recording. Of course. Claire reached into her bag, pulled out a white envelope, and slid it across the table toward him. What is this? He asked, not touching it. Truth, she said simply. DNA test. Yours. Theirs. I had it done last week. His jaw twitched. You really think I'll open it? Leon. He did. Slowly. A folded document. Simple words. One line bolded at the bottom. Probability of paternity. 1999. Nie smažintirt. Machine. 9%. The fork slipped from his fingers, clattered onto the floor. He stared at the page like it had cursed him. Claire's voice broke the moment like a match to silence. I didn't do this for money or revenge. I told them they had a father. I just didn't tell them he was a coward. Leon's breath hitched. You made your choice years ago, she continued, but tonight you made it again in front of them. He looked up for the first time, really looked at the two girls. They weren't crying. They weren't speaking. They were just watching him. And something about the way they looked at him, not with anger, but with confusion, made his throat close. He backed away, slowly, envelope still in hand. Leon, Claire said, her voice quieter now. You can run again, or you can grow up. He didn't answer. Couldn't. He turned and left, every step echoing like judgment behind him. He didn't speak a word in the car, didn't touch the scotch in his apartment, didn't sleep. The test sat on his kitchen counter. The word father stared back at him like a dare. He had denied blood. Now he'd have to live with the sound of two small girls, learning what disappointment looked like in a suit. Chapter 2. The apology that wasn't. Saying sorry doesn't fix what pride already broke. Leon Maddox stood outside the apartment door longer than he needed to. The hallway was silent, sterile, but his chest felt loud. He had stood in front of boards worth billions, had turned global markets with a single word. But this tiny door in a quiet building made his throat dry. He knocked once. Claire opened it a few seconds later, dressed in an oversized sweater, her hair still damp from a shower. She didn't look surprised. You came. You left the envelope, he said, holding it up like it proved something. I thought we should talk. Claire stared at him for a long beat, then stepped aside. Inside, the apartment was small but warm. Toys lined the edge of the living room. A pink blanket was folded neatly on the couch. There was a faint scent of strawberries in the air. They're not here, she said quietly, pouring water into a kettle. My neighbor took them for a play date. I didn't want them here for this. Leon nodded. He sat, stiffly, on the edge of the couch, like it might reject him. Claire, he began, what I said, what I did at the restaurant. I know it was unforgivable. She turned from the kitchen, arms crossed. Then why are you here? He looked at her. Because I can't sleep. Because their eyes followed me in my dreams. because I saw myself in them and hated it. Instead, he said, because I was wrong. Claire didn't soften. She didn't step closer. She just waited. I thought you left to hurt me, Leon said, his voice low. All those years ago, I thought you vanished out of spite. I didn't know you were pregnant. She exhaled sharply, like the words still cut. I tried, I called. You changed your number. You moved offices. I had no way to reach you. His chest tightened. I didn't know. No, she said flatly. You didn't care to. Silence settled between them like dust. Leon rubbed his palms together. I was scared. Claire raised an eyebrow. Of 2 6-year-olds. Of what I would be to them, he said. My father was cruel, and I'm not exactly warm. I didn't want to repeat history. Her voice didn't soften, so instead, you became the very thing you feared. Leon looked away. The truth stung more when she said it. I came to apologize. You came, she said, walking slowly toward him. Because people are talking, because someone filmed you, shaming 2 little girls in public, and now you're trying to undo the part that made you look bad. He stood up, too quickly. That's not true. Claire stood close now. Her eyes shimmered, not with tears, but steel. Leon, she said, her voice cutting through him. They're not your PR crisis to manage. They're your daughters. The words sliced him clean through. He dropped back onto the couch. I know. Claire turned her back, folded her arms. For a long time, neither of them said a word. Then, in a voice he almost didn't hear, she whispered. Lila cried herself to sleep. Iris asked if all dads are mean when they don't want you. Leon closed his eyes. I'm sorry, he said again. I know it's not enough. It's not, she replied, but it's a start. He looked up. Can I see them? She hesitated. I don't want to confuse them, she said carefully. I don't want to open a door unless you plan to stay on the other side. I want to try, he said. Claire tilted her head. Why now? His throat felt tight. Because I looked into their eyes and I saw everything I've been missing. She didn't speak. He rose again, this time slower. I'm not asking for forgiveness or trust. I'm just asking for a chance to earn both. Claire looked down at the floor, then back at him. I'll let you see them, she said, but not as a visitor, not as a celebrity. As a man they can one day call Dad. He nodded. That's what I want. Claire walked him to the door. Before she opened it, she said, next time, bring strawberries. Lila loves them. Iris doesn't. She likes mango. Leon blinked. Okay. She opened the door. And for the first time in years, Leon Maddox walked away from something not as a CEO, but as a man trying to become worthy of 2 little girls who painted moons and cried in silence. He thought an apology would be enough, but sometimes the only apology worth giving is showing up again tomorrow. Chapter 3. The chair at the window. Love doesn't enter through the front door. It waits by the window until it's invited in. Lila had a habit every afternoon. After she finished her homework and peeled the crust off her sandwich, she'd climb onto the beige armchair by the front window and wait. She didn't say she was waiting, but Claire knew. She'd pretend to color or read or hum to herself, but her little eyes never drifted far from the glass. It started the day after the restaurant, and today it was the same. Lila's knees tucked under her chin, her pink notebook open but untouched, eyes glued to the street below. Every time footsteps echoed in the hallway, her breath caught, and then the slump in her shoulders when it wasn't him. Claire watched from the kitchen, drying the same mug for the 3rd time. Sweetheart, she said gently, you know, he might not come today, right? Lila didn't answer, just nodded without moving. Leon didn't knock this time. He pressed the doorbell and waited, holding 2 small paper bags in one hand and a heart too large for his chest in the other. Claire opened the door. She didn't smile. But she didn't stop him either. "You're early," she said. He held up the bags, strawberries, and mango. She tilted her head, surprised. "You remembered." He stepped inside. "I remember a lot of things. I just buried most of them." The apartment felt different with him in it. Too large, too quiet, like a man wearing a suit in a child's dream. Then he saw her, Leela, curled up in the window chair, eyes wide. "I wasn't sure if you'd come," she whispered. Leon knelt down in front of her. "I wasn't sure I'd be welcome," he said. Lila looked at him for a long time, then pointed at the empty space on the chair beside her. "You can sit. Just don't talk too loud." He smiled, genuinely, and took the spot. His legs awkwardly folded, knees higher than they should be, but he didn't move. He just sat there, quiet, present, small, for once, not as a CEO, but as a man who didn't want to miss this moment. Claire watched from the kitchen. She didn't interrupt. She couldn't, because something sacred was happening in that silence, something no apology could script. An hour passed. They watched cars, counted how many yellow ones they saw. Iris joined them next, not saying much, just curling against her sister's shoulder. Leon's arm rested behind them, unsure if he was allowed to touch, and then Lila leaned against him just slightly. His breath hitched, but he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't dare break it. When Claire tucked the girls into bed that night, Lila whispered, "Mommy." He sat in the chair. Claire brushed a curl behind her daughter's ear. "I know. He didn't leave right away." "No, he didn't." Lila's voice dropped to a sleepy hum. "Can we leave the chair empty tomorrow, just in case he comes again?" Claire nodded, her throat too tight for words. Leon stood in the living room, coat in his hand, unsure if he was supposed to leave or wait for Claire to say it. She finally walked over. "You were good with them," she said softly. I didn't say a word. "Exactly," she said. "That's what they needed." He looked at the chair by the window, now empty. "I don't deserve them," he murmured. "No," Claire said, "but that doesn't mean you can't become someone who does." He nodded, eyes heavy. "Same time tomorrow." She looked at him not with trust, but with something close to hope. "Same time." He stepped into the hallway, and for the first time in his adult life, he didn't feel like a man walking away from a deal. He felt like someone being given a second chance to show up and sit still. She didn't say she missed him. She just left the chair empty and the curtains drawn open. Chapter 4. What the photos couldn't show. A photo captures the smile, but never the ache behind it. Claire hadn't touched the photo albums in years. They lived in the second drawer of the hallway cabinet beneath warranty receipts, half-used crayons, and a Christmas card from a neighbor they barely knew. But that morning, something changed. Lila had asked, casually, "Do we have baby pictures?" And Iris, ever so quiet, added, "Of us, not just me and Lila, but with Mommy." Claire had paused. "Yes, we do." She didn't say what was missing from most of them. Leon returned that afternoon, carrying a small wooden puzzle and a paperback book with glitter on the cover. The girls didn't rush to the door. They didn't squeal or run, but they smiled, and they let him in. That was enough. An hour later, Claire placed the photo album on the table. She didn't explain what it was, just opened it. Page by page, the girls leaned close. Leon sat across from them, shoulders tight, hands in his lap. The photos were grainy, Claire in hospital scrubs, hair stuck to her forehead. Lila and Iris wrapped in matching pink blankets, their eyes still closed, fists still balled. In one photo, Claire was kissing Iris's forehead, but the bed behind her was empty. Leon noticed, "There's no one else in any of them," he said softly. Claire nodded. "There wasn't?" He swallowed. The next photo showed Claire at a park, 2 toddlers in her lap, both holding juice boxes. Her eyes were smiling, but the lines in her face told a deeper story. Lila turned the page. "Where were you?" "Daddy." Leon froze. He hadn't earned that word. Not yet. But she said it so softly, like it had been waiting on her tongue for weeks. "I didn't know," he said honestly. "Not until now." The girls stared at the pictures again. Iris pointed. "We're wearing birthday hats." Claire smiled. "That was your third birthday. We made cupcakes." Leon leaned in. "Who took that photo?" Claire looked at him. "I did. I set the timer." He stared at the image again. 3 party hats, a tray of misshapen cupcakes, and Claire's hand resting gently behind her daughter's, steadying them, anchoring them. "Do you have any with me?" he asked suddenly. "Anything, even from back then." Claire hesitated, then stood. She returned moments later with a single photo, creased at the corner. It was a photo from another life. Leon, years younger, standing shirtless on a beach, holding Claire's hand. Her other hand rested on her stomach, just barely beginning to swell. He stared at it. "I didn't even know," he whispered, "that you were already, that we were already a family." Claire said nothing, because what do you say to a man who only looks back after it's too late? Later that night, when the girls had gone to bed, Leon lingered by the coffee table, still staring at the photo. "I wish I could have been there," he said. Claire stood beside him, not close, but not distant. "You weren't." "I know." He looked at her. "Do you think they'll ever forgive me?" Claire considered her answer. "They won't remember your words as much as they'll remember your absence. But if you keep showing up, maybe the memories will change." Leon nodded, his jaw tight. "I never learned how to stay," he said quietly. "Not with anyone. But I want to learn." Claire looked at him, then really looked, and saw a man who finally wanted something money couldn't buy. Time, presence, a place in their story. When Leon left that night, the photo album remained open on the table. He paused at the doorway. "May I take a copy?" he asked. "Of the one at the beach." Claire nodded. "Make sure it's the real one," she said. "The one where you didn't know what you were losing." The photos showed smiles, birthdays, little feet in tiny shoes. But what they didn't show was the echo of an empty chair, or the man who finally chose to sit in it. Chapter 5. The day he stayed past midnight. Presence speaks louder than promises. It started with a broken shoelace. Iris had been crying in the hallway, not loud, just that quiet kind of sadness that children try to swallow. Her shoe wouldn't tie. Her sister was already outside, and Claire was elbow deep in a pot of pasta, one hand on the stove, the other answering an email from work. And then, without a word, Leon knelt. He tied the shoe slowly, carefully. Bunny ears, just like Claire used to. "Double knot?" he asked gently. Iris nodded, wiping her nose on her sleeve. He tied it again, there, solid enough to run laps around the moon. She grinned, and just like that, he stayed. That night, he didn't rush off after dinner. He stayed for dishes and homework and the slow unraveling of bedtime routines that parents know too well. One more cup of water, one more question, one more story, one more song. Claire sat on the couch, exhausted, and Leon was still there, reading a bedtime book with too many voices, letting Iris curl against his chest while Lila tried to spell dinosaur on her drawing pad. Claire didn't say a word. She just watched. He stayed after they fell asleep, pulled the covers up to their chins like he'd been doing it for years. And when he came back into the living room, he didn't ask for coffee. He just sat, still, quiet, present. "Do you always stay this late?" Claire asked, folding a blanket beside him. Leon looked at the clock. "Midnight." "No, I never do." "Then why tonight?" He glanced toward the hallway where their bedroom door was closed. "Because for the first time in a long time, I don't want to leave." Claire didn't move, and Leon didn't press. They talked in low voices after that, about small things. School supplies, Iris's favorite color green now, not pink. The way Lila kept dreaming of stars. But then Claire asked something she hadn't meant to say out loud. Do you regret it? Missing it all? Leon didn't hesitate. Every second, she nodded slowly, her voice quieter. Then why did you disappear? He looked at her then, really looked. The truth, he said. Because love scared me. Because you loved me like I was human, not powerful. And I didn't know what to do with that. Claire blinked. That's not a reason, she said. It's a wound. I know, he whispered, and I'm sorry. The apartment was dark, except for the glow of the hallway lamp. Claire stood and walked toward the kitchen, came back with a folded blanket. You're staying here tonight. Leon froze. No guest room, she added. Just the couch, just sleep. No talks, no hopes, just stay. He nodded. Okay. Claire handed him the blanket. And for the first time in his life, Leon Maddox didn't interpret stillness as failure. He laid on the couch and stayed. In the morning, Lila found him still there, snoring softly, tangled in the blanket, one foot hanging off the side. She tiptoed closer, grinning. Mom, she whispered. He didn't leave. Claire leaned in the doorway, sipping her coffee. No, she said, her voice barely audible. He didn't. It wasn't the things he bought. It was the fact that, when the world went quiet, he stayed. Chapter 6. The first time, they called him Dad. A title is just a word, until it's given freely by someone who means it. It happened on a Tuesday, not a birthday, not a holiday, just a Tuesday, with mismatched socks and spilled juice and a thunderstorm that knocked the lights out halfway through dinner. Claire had lit a candle, the flickering kind they only used for special occasions or power outages. The apartment glowed in soft gold and shadows. Lila and Iris were curled up on the couch beneath one blanket, watching the rain streak the window. Leon was sitting cross-legged on the floor, holding up two flashlights under his chin like a ghost. He made his voice low and gravelly, and then the ghost said, "Who's been drinking all my mango juice?" The girls burst out laughing. Claire, watching from the kitchen doorway, allowed herself a smile. This man who once couldn't name their birthdays, who had denied their blood in front of a full room, was now on the floor, wearing pink clip-on earrings and letting Lila braid his hair with plastic barrettes. Time did strange things to guilt, but love changed shape. They played charades by candlelight, then a word game, then a blanket fort, and when the power flickered back to life, the room somehow felt dimmer than it did with just candlelight. "Do we have to turn the lights on?" Iris asked. "No," Leon said softly. "We don't." They kept it dark. Just voices, breath, and closeness. Later that night, after Claire tucked them in, Lila whispered something behind her hand. Claire leaned closer. "What is it?" "Baby. Can we call him Daddy now?" Claire froze. "You can call him whatever you feel," she said, "but only if it's true." Lila turned to Iris. Their foreheads touched briefly, the way twins communicated in silence, and then they nodded. Together, Leon was folding blankets in the living room when he heard their footsteps. He looked up. "Can't sleep." Iris walked straight to him, barefoot and serious. "We forgot something." Leon bent down. "What's that?" Lila reached up, arms out. He picked her up. It still startled him, how small she was, and how much weight her silence carried. She leaned her head on his shoulder, and then Iris, voice small, said it. "Goodnight." "Daddy." Leon's breath caught. Lila whispered the same, even quieter. "Goodnight, Daddy." And that was it. No dramatic pause, no music cue, just two children choosing a word and giving it to him like a gift. After he tucked them back in, Leon sat on the edge of the couch, hands shaking. Claire brought him tea. "You okay?" she asked. "I don't think I've ever been more than okay," he said. "But now, I don't even have a word for this." "They gave you one?" she said gently. "Tonight," he looked at her. "Does this change anything between us?" he asked. "Between you and me." Claire hesitated. "It changes everything," she whispered, "but maybe not the way you think." Later that night, Leon walked past their room again. The door was open slightly. Lila had kicked off her blanket. He walked in, pulled it gently over her. Then Iris stirred. Her eyes opened halfway. "You stayed," she whispered, smiling in the dark. Leon brushed a strand of hair from her forehead. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, "ever again." They didn't ask for a perfect man. They asked for someone who would stay. And that night, they gave him the one name he never knew he needed. Daddy. Chapter 7. The letter she never sent. Some things aren't said to be heard. They're written to be survived. It had been tucked between old tax papers and an expired passport, yellowed, bent at the edges, and sealed in an envelope that had never been stamped. Claire found it while looking for a coloring book. Iris swore she left under the boring stuff. The letter? The one she wrote 6 years ago. The night she brought the twins home from the hospital. Leon had never seen it. He wasn't meant to, but she held it now, like something fragile, like it might bleed if she opened it. That night, after the girls had fallen asleep, she made tea and sat at the dining table, the letter unopened in front of her. The apartment was quiet. Too quiet. Leon arrived around 9, 15 not with flowers, or mangoes, or toys, but with nothing. He came with nothing. And that's how she knew he was trying to give her something real. "I thought I'd stay for the story tonight," he said. Claire nodded. "They're already out." He sat down across from her, noticing the envelope but not asking. After a long silence, she spoke. "I wrote something once," she said softly. "When they were born, I thought maybe one day I'd send it." Leon waited. It was after the nurse handed me Lila, and the room felt too big, too empty. She looked at him. "You weren't there." I kept thinking, maybe if I wrote to you, something would change. "Did it?" She nodded, slowly. "It made me stronger, but it didn't bring you back." She slid the envelope across the table. "Read it." "If you want." He hesitated, then opened it. Her handwriting was steady, but every word felt like it had been written through tears. "Dear Leon, I don't know if you'll ever read this, but I need to write it anyway. Your daughters were born today. 2 of them. 2 perfect, breathing reminders of everything we once were. You weren't there. I wish I could say that surprised me, but it didn't. What surprised me was how much it still hurt. Lila has your eyes. Iris has your stubborn mouth. I think they'll both have your brilliance. Though God help me if they inherit your fear. I don't hate you. I want to, but I don't. I just wish you'd stayed long enough to see what you left behind. I won't chase you. I can't. These girls deserve a mother who doesn't beg to be seen. But if someday you wonder, if someday you feel something at 3A, that feels like regret, that's us. We were real. We still are. Claire." Leon didn't look up right away. His hand shook as he folded the paper, slower than necessary. "Why didn't you send it?" he asked, voice barely above a breath. "Because I didn't want to need you anymore," she said. "And I was afraid. If you never wrote back, oh my, it would break me." He nodded, eyes wet. "I don't deserve to answer it now." She looked at him gently. "You don't have to answer it. You just have to keep showing up." Leon sat there a long time, the letter in his hand, and when he finally stood, he didn't try to kiss her, didn't ask for more than he'd earned. He just walked into the girls' room, knelt by their beds, watched their little chests rise and fall, and whispered, "I see you now." Claire stood in the hallway, the doorway to her heart still closed, but no longer locked. The letter was never mailed, but tonight it was finally received. And sometimes that's enough. Chapter 8. The Man Who Stopped Running. Sometimes love doesn't chase you. It waits until you're brave enough to return. The old Leon Maddox used to run when things got too quiet. Stillness terrified him the way it left room for memories to rise, for guilt to whisper. He'd fill it with strategy calls, meetings, red-eye flights to places he never cared to see. Noise was armor, but lately, things had been still. No back-to-back conferences, no press releases, no runway models on his arm for the cameras, just mango juice in the fridge, plastic hair clips in his jacket pocket, 2 girls who asked him to stay for pancakes on Saturday mornings, and Claire, who still didn't let him all the way in, but left the door open. One rainy afternoon, Leon stood in front of the mirror in his penthouse, the one that used to reflect only power, now clouded by uncertainty. He'd gotten a call that morning. Geneva. A 2-week summit, 7-figure deal. First class ticket waiting. It should have been easy, but he hadn't said yes. Instead, he'd found himself walking the aisles of a toy store, looking for a puzzle shaped like the solar system Lila's newest obsession. By dinner time, he was back in Claire's apartment, hair damp from the rain. "I thought you had a flight," she said, surprised. "I canceled." She blinked. "Canceled?" He shrugged. Didn't feel like running this time. Claire didn't say anything right away. She just turned back to the stove, quietly plating chicken nuggets and green beans. The girls didn't even notice, because they already believed he was staying. After dinner, Iris asked him to read the bedtime story. "Mom always does it," she said, "but she's tired, and you do the voices better." Leon grinned. "I do." "Huh?" Iris nodded solemnly. "Especially the dragon. You make him sound like he's had too much coffee." Later that night, with the girls asleep and the apartment warm with leftover laughter, Claire handed him a mug of tea. She didn't sit beside him, just leaned against the kitchen wall. "I waited for you to leave," she said. Leon looked up. "I thought maybe you'd get bored, or scared, or too busy, and disappear." "I almost did," he said honestly. "But then they said Dad. And I realized." He paused, gripping the mug tighter. "I've spent my life building empires, so I wouldn't have to admit I wanted a family." Claire looked at him, then really looked. "You know, I'm not asking for perfection," she said. "I'm asking for peace, for consistency, for a man who doesn't vanish the moment it gets hard." "I know," he whispered, "and I'm trying." She walked over and sat beside him. "You're not perfect," she said, "but you're still here. That matters more than you think." The rain tapped against the windows, a quiet rhythm, a heartbeat. Leon sat there with Claire beside him, 2 bedrooms, away from 2 small girls who now called him something he'd once feared. He didn't reach for her hand, didn't ask what they were. But when she rested her head gently against his shoulder, he didn't move, didn't speak, didn't run. For the first time in his life, Leon Maddox didn't need a jet to feel free. He just needed to stay, and he did. Chapter 9. When she said his name, like it still meant something. Sometimes love returns, not with a grand gesture, but with the way someone says your name. Claire hadn't said his name in weeks, not fully, not Leon the way she used to. Back when his name meant safety and home and breathless Sunday mornings under tangled sheets. Now it was always, "Can you pass that?" They're waiting in the hallway, or just silence. And Leon noticed every time. It was a quiet Sunday. The girls were out with Claire's sister. The apartment was unusually still. Leon had offered to fix the leaky faucet in the bathroom. He didn't really know how, but he wanted to try. He had one hand under the sink and the other covered in rust when Claire walked in, holding 2 mugs of coffee. "You look ridiculous," she said. "Better than helpless," he muttered. Grunting, she sat on the edge of the tub and handed him a towel. "That's not how you use a wrench. By the way, I figured," he said, laughing a little. "But you let me struggle anyway." She shrugged. It was entertaining. They sat on the bathroom floor after that, drinking coffee, talking about nothing, everything. It had been a long time since they were alone like this, not forced, not planned, just quiet, safe. Leon turned toward her and asked, "Why didn't you try harder to find me?" Claire didn't flinch. "Because I already knew the answer," she said. "You wouldn't have stayed." He nodded slowly. "You're right. I was a coward." "You were," she said. "But you're not anymore." He looked up sharply. She was staring straight at him now. And then she said it. "Leon." Just that. Soft, unforced, no anger in it, no armor. Just the way she used to say it. Before. He didn't respond right away. His hands were still gripping the coffee mug, but his entire body stilled. "Say it again," he whispered. Claire's eyes glistened. "Leon." He closed his eyes for a moment, breathed it in, like someone hearing their name after years in silence. "That's the first time you've said my name," he said, "like it's still mine. It never stopped being yours," she said. "But I had to forget how to say it, just to survive." Leon reached for her hand slowly, gently. This time, she didn't pull away. Later, while she washed dishes, and he dried them, something so mundane, it felt holy. Claire bumped her shoulder against his. "Don't read into it," she said. He grinned. Too late. That night, before leaving, he paused at the door. She stood behind him. "Good night," she said, and then, quieter, "Leon." He turned around and smiled like a man who just found his way home. "Some people say I love you with a kiss." She said it with his name, and it was enough. Chapter 10. The Promise at the Doorstep. The truest promises aren't spoken at altars. They're whispered at doorways. When no one is watching, it was the first snowfall of winter, the kind that softened everything. Sidewalks, rooftops, regret. Claire stood by the window with a towel in her hands, watching Lila and Iris press their palms to the cold glass, giggling at the snowflakes. Their coats were zipped, scarves mismatched, eyes bright. They were waiting for him, and right on time. He appeared jacket dusted with snow, cheeks flushed, carrying 2 paper cups of hot cocoa, and a crooked grin that made Claire's heart aches. "Are we ready for the snow monster hunt?" he called out. The girls shrieked in unison. Yes. Claire opened the door. The cold rushed in. But Leon brought warmth with him. He knelt to help with their boots, tying each knot slowly, carefully. "You good?" he asked Claire quietly as he stood. She nodded. "You?" He smiled. "Better than I deserve." They stayed outside for nearly an hour. Snowball fights, footprints in fresh powder. Lila made a snow angel. Iris made 2, in case the first one gets lonely. She explained. Claire watched from the porch, and she realized she wasn't waiting for him to leave anymore. She was waiting to see if she could believe it. After the girls were tucked into bed, flushed and glowing with that kind of magic only snow and sugar can create, Leon stayed behind. Claire stood in the doorway, arms folded loosely. "You don't have to keep showing up like this," she said. He looked up. "No, no," she said softly, "because it's not about hot cocoa, or snow angels, or bedtime stories." "Then what is it?" She stepped closer. "It's about whether you'll still be here when the weather turns, when the girls get sick, when I can't smile, when the noise stops, and life gets boring again." Leon set his mug down, walked to her, and then, at the doorstep, where this all began, where he once turned away, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, square velvet box. Claire froze. "No," she said gently. "Don't ask that yet." Leon chuckled softly. "It's not a ring. She blinked. He opened it. Inside was a simple, old-fashioned house key, worn around the edges. "My mother gave this to me when I bought my first apartment," he said. "I kept it all this time. I never gave it to anyone." Claire stared at it. "This isn't a proposal," he added. "It's a promise." "A promise of what?" she whispered. "That I'm not going anywhere," he said. "That this," he gestured around them, "is home now. If you'll have me." Claire didn't answer right away. She looked past him to the hallway where her daughters slept, then back at the man who had once denied them and now came bearing nothing but presence and truth. She took the key, slid it into the bowl by the door next to her own, and said softly, "Okay." They didn't kiss. Not then. Not yet. But she leaned her head into his chest, and he wrapped both arms around her like he'd been waiting his whole life to do just that. The snow kept falling. The world stayed quiet. But at that doorstep, a family was no longer breaking. It was beginning. He didn't ask for her hand. He asked for a chance to stay, and she gave it to him. Right there at the doorway he once walked away from. He came back to the door he once closed. It wasn't the way he held her. It was the way he knocked again. After all those years, the way he sat in silence, tied shoelaces, made bad dragon voices, and let two little girls braid his hair like he'd earned it. Leon Maddox was once the man who denied blood. Now, he was the man who stayed through every storm, every scraped knee, every quiet bedtime. Claire never needed a savior. She needed a partner, someone who showed up when no one was clapping, someone who stayed when the world stopped spinning. And he did. People ask what true love looks like. It looks like a house key in a bowl beside hers, a voice at the door that doesn't leave, and two daughters who now say, "Daddy," like it's the safest word they know. We'd love to hear from you. What did this story make you feel? Drop your thoughts in the comments and rate it between 0 and 10. Subscribe and turn on the bell so you're always updated. More inspiring stories are waiting. Click here to watch them. If this story moved you, if it reminded you that people can change, that families can heal, that love can return to the very place it once broke, then the next story goes even deeper. We'll be waiting at the next doorstep. See you there.